person you want to be, you must first defeat the one person holding you back. Because the only person standing between you and your future is you.
Better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out.
This is the second weekend of the best year of your life. Florida ought to make some noise. Today is baptism weekend at all of our campuses, and if you're at the campus in West Palm Beach, you actually have time to go to the 1140 at Royal Palm Beach, where Austin, our son, is baptizing people today. So again, if you don't mind, give it up for all the people who are getting baptized today and all their families who came to support them. We're going to have so much fun, but a lot of people are asking, because last week I didn't have time to announce it, like, hey, where are we on that third state? Like, where are we on our fundraiser? So on the screen, they'll put it up for you. You guys are giving like crazy. You guys have given $1,303,486.64. Go ahead, somebody make some noise. That's big. It's just great. And the devil doesn't, you talk about a fight, man. The devil doesn't like it when you plant churches, you change lives. At all of our campuses today, already getting reports of people raising their hands, receiving Jesus. In fact, a moment ago when we did that here at Sunset Hills, I looked at my buddy on the front row and I said, isn't that exciting? All these people getting saved. How many of y'all faith churches, it really helped you in a great way? Raise your hand in the chat, talk about it. Today we're going to get in the ring. We're going to have an absolute blast. We're going to talk about a fight. Anybody ever been in a fight? Maybe with your spouse or something? I got a Boudreaux joke before I get started. If you're new here, it just kind of happens occasionally. So Boudreaux and Marie, they got married, you know, and they're in their first big fight. This is the big one. After a while, Boudreaux looks at Marie and he says, Marie, listen, when we were up there on the stage and in front of all our friends, you said that you promised to obey and to listen to me. She said, well, I did, but she said, I just want to start an argument in front of all our friends. How many of y'all got time for one more? I shouldn't tell this one, but how many of y'all, come on, one more. Raise your hand if you got time for one more. This is the wrong one. I shouldn't tell the church, but I'll tell it anyway. So, Boudreaux, he came up to Marie and he said, hey, Marie, you know, if I die, you suppose you get married again? So, well, Boudreaux, yeah, I mean, I'm a young lady. I probably would. So you suppose he'd be sitting in my massage chair in the living room? She said, well, Boudreaux, probably, because he'd be the man of the house, you know. So would he be sleeping on my bed? She said, well, probably, because, I mean, it would be my husband. She said, well, would he be driving my truck? She said, no, he don't know how to drive a stick shift. So I told you I shouldn't tell you that one, but I did anyway. I did it on a Sunday, the second week. Look at your neighbor and shout, I'm a lover, not a fighter. But shout back, say, I will fight for what I love. I will fight for what I love. Today we're going to talk about fighting the good fight of faith. Number one, a good fight is the fight you win, right? But then we know that life is a fight. And you're always in the ring. But the good news is that God is in your corner, and he's going to help you. In fact, we sing those songs, right? God is fighting for us, right? We're always singing songs about God fighting for us. I love what Mike Tyson said. He said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Anybody? No? Speaking of Mike Tyson, he bit my friend, if you know it, a relationship with Evander Holyfield that kind of goes deep with St. Louis, and he actually bit him on the ear here. If you see, he just took a bite. How many of y'all know that's not fighting fair? But how many of y'all, it's not beneath you? The devil doesn't fight fair. He's not interested in gentlemanly rules. He's not into, hey, I don't want to hurt you. I'm not going to strike until your guard's up. He won't hesitate to try to knock you down and hit you while you're down. So we have to learn the rules of the enemy that we're fighting. Number one, the enemy is not your wife. Boudreaux, it is not Marie. The enemy is not your boss. The enemy is not a government. It's not a system. The enemy, the Bible said, it's the devil. And it said the devil comes to steal, to kill, and shout it, what? To destroy. Come on, Florida, shout it with me. To do what? To kill, to steal, and to destroy. Now, 1 Peter 5, verse 8 gives us some rules. It's really good. It says, be self-controlled. I've noticed that the greatest fighters, a lot of great fighters go to our church or attend our church online. It seems like the greatest fighters are the fighters that don't get mad when they fight and bite people's ear off. But how many like me, and sometimes you do get a little mad when you fight? Raise your lion hand right now, right? But it said, be self-controlled, be alert, Peter said. Your enemy, the devil, since he prowls around looking for someone whom he may devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that your brothers throughout the world are undergoing the same kind of sufferings. So you got to be alert, be aware that Satan goes about as a roaring lion. Now, I love this because the Bible doesn't say he is a roaring lion. It says he goes around acting like a roaring lion. In other words, he's like, "Rah, I'm going to get you." But Jesus knocked his teeth out 2,000 years ago. He can't do anything greater than what Jesus did. Somebody ought to shout hallelujah. In you and to you and for you and with you. So Satan goes around as a roaring lion, seeking to whom he may devour. But you need to say, no, you may not. He's on a war path. He's sneaking around looking for the chance to try to pounce on you. Now, here's the interesting thing about the devil. Number one, raise your hand if you know the devil's real. Some of you didn't raise your hand. Raise your hand if you're actually related to the devil. Raise your hand. The devil's real, and I don't put a lot of emphasis on the devil, but it'd be wrong to get in the ring of life and think that our opponent is Susan at work or Bill down at the factory, when really the war that's going on oftentimes is this war where the enemy tries to set us up against other people, which only causes us to be mad, emaciated, and aggravated. But the enemy, he's coming really just to destroy your peace, to destroy your self-control. So don't be caught napping during 2022. Be on the guard, be on the defensive, and know I'm going to stand firm in the faith. I'm rooted and grounded in God. I will not be shaken. I will not be moved. I'm going to be consistent because the enemy's consistent, because Mike Tyson did not try to scratch Evander. He actually took a chunk out of his ear. Can you imagine how hard that is now, trying to wear a mask? Come on, somebody right now. You know what I'm saying? In today's season. These jokes on Sunday are not appropriate for Sunday, but I'm just going there today. I'm in sweatpants. I'm feeling a little too loose. Should have put on a suit. Didn't do it. Too bad, so sad. At least you're having a good time. So the enemy doesn't come to scratch. He comes to say, I'm going to take you out. This is going to be a knockout blow. And what he does is he tries to get up in the ring with you. And when you get in and you're alone, I haven't been in this bad boy yet, but give it up for our creative team because they made a thing of a ring. I like that. And you can say, well, I'm not going to put on my gloves because after all, I don't know, the devil's been working a long time. I don't know if he's really got the energy to mess with a little person like me in Palm Beach County or St. Louis County. I'm here to tell you, how many of y'all think you ought to put your gloves on in 2022? After you hand sanitize them. So we got to be ready to fight, but then realize what the real fight's about. The Bible said in Ephesians 6, it said, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and the power of his might. It didn't say be strong for the Lord, because you can only be strong for the Lord so long, and then you get weak, you get hungry, you get mad, and then you bite somebody's head off. This guy just bit off an ear, and we're like, man, that's not a good way to fight. But how many of y'all raise your hand at all of our campuses and say, you have bit your wife's head off or your kid's head off? Raise your hand because they're pointing at you right now. We know you did. So it says be strong in the Lord and the power of his might. Check this out. Next verse says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers of darkness of this world. So again, if you're not careful, you're beating at the wind and you're hitting this politician and you're hitting that politician and you're hitting this agency and you're hitting that person and you're fighting, you're wearing yourself out, but you're not saving your fight for the real enemy, which the enemy is the enemy of your soul and the enemy of your mind, who's trying to somebody ought to give God praise today, trying to knock you out in a ring. Now, I want us to go to that passage where it says, fight the good. In Timothy, it says, fight the good fight. Everybody shout, the good fight. It says this, it says, fight the good fight of faith, lay hold of eternal life. That word life there means Zoe. Everybody shout Zoe. If you're a note taker, Z-O-E. Zoe, which means the God kind of life or means total victory. So it says, let us lay hold of total victory. My buddy, Evander Holyfield, when he fought... He got back in the ring, he had a heart condition. A bunch of us prayed for him. He got healed. Married a doctor friend of mine from St. Louis. She moved from St. Louis to Atlanta. And when he got in the ring and he made millions and millions of dollars, she didn't go with him. She stayed at home in Atlanta at their mansion. And Evander came home with half his ear, but she went to the bank with all his money. So he was a conqueror, but she was more than a conqueror. May I tell you today that Jesus went to hell, suffered, died, defeated hell and the grave and every plot and plan that the enemy has. And you're just staying at home today knowing God is fighting for me. What the enemy meant for evil, God's going to turn it around for my good. Somebody ought to shout amen. You ought to get up on Monday saying, sing like a butterfly. What do they say? Sing like a bee. Can't nobody fight like me. Who said that? Muhammad Ali? He was cocky, wasn't he? I don't know. I forget, what was it? Fight like a butterfly? Some white girl yelling at me. I don't even know. She's like, fight like a butterfly, sing like a bee. Can't nobody fight like me. I never thought that from her. She's so little. A lot of anger in that little woman, I'll tell you right now. Fight the good fight. Everybody shout, fight the good fight. Lay hold of, sounds like you got to grab it for yourself. Lay hold of it, for you're called to do this. And you have professed with a good profession before many witnesses. 2 Timothy 4 verse 7 says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished my race. I have kept firmly and held fast to the faith. If this was easy, everybody would do it. If it was easy to stay married, everybody would do it. If it was easy to raise kids, everybody would do it. If it was easy to be tan, skinny, rich, and happy, heck, I'd do it. How about you? Come on, somebody, but it's not easy. Tan's pretty easy because you can just go to the tanning bed and spray yourself with tan. Come on, somebody. But how many of y'all struggling with the skinny? Raise your hand. Some of y'all are like, I'm too fat to raise my hand right now, but I will. By the way, we're going on a fast tomorrow for 21 days, the Daniel fast. That may or may not help you. 2 or 3 people says, Reverend, that's where you're wrong. James 1, verse 2. It says, dear brothers, in your life will be full of difficulties and temptations. If it is, then be happy. For when the way is rough, your patience has a chance to grow. I love this verse. So let it grow. Don't try to squirm out of it. Don't try to squirm out of your problems. For when patience is finally in full bloom, then you will be ready for anything. Squirm out of it. MMA champ at our church, Michael Chandler, I see him all the time in the ring, and somebody will get him in a headlock and flip him over, and I think, man, dog, Mike is going down. But somehow in Mike's head, Mike's just resting, and it almost looks a little weird. Anybody ever seen 2 guys sweating in a ring, and you're like, man, it kind of looks like they're cuddling. But he's resting because he knows, I'm not going to squirm out of this. What I'm doing is I'm getting ready to kick into a second wind. I'm getting ready to kick into a technique that this joker doesn't know, but I've been watching his previous tapes. Mike has told me this many times over lunch. I've never been in the ring with him, never wanted to go in the ring with him. In fact, sometimes if somebody punks us on the street walking around, I was like, well, if you only knew, you don't want to mess with this guy. Because you don't know the ability that someone possesses when they're walking down the street. If you looked at Mike Chandler, you looked at Frank, my buddy, you wouldn't know that these guys were trained killers. I'm here to tell you that in 2022, that if you go to church and you say, you know what, I'm going to get saved, I'm going to get baptized, I'm going to go through growth track, I'm going to serve. When you're walking down the street, hell is afraid of what you can do with your hands. Hell is afraid what you can do with your mouth. Hell is afraid what you can do with your faith. I'm talking to somebody today that says, I'm not squirming out of it. I'm not trying to get out of it. I'm going to prophesy my way out of it. This is my year. I give you 10 seconds to praise him today. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, listen, you ought to write this down. The devil's not going to give you a fighting chance. He's not going to give you a head start. He's got a scheme. And his scheme is to take you out. You're going to get all bloody in the ring, and the stuff's going on, and now you're in the ring with the enemy, and now you're also in with the enemy, and you've taken some pretty good blows to the head. Now you're divorced. Now you've lost your ministry, and the enemy's yelling at you, saying you can't make it. But have any of y'all ever seen a fight to where you're like, oh, the guy needed a break. Thank God the bell rang. Raise your hand. Come on, all campuses. It rang. You see it over, especially if you know him. You're like, oh, God. And all of a sudden their buddy comes over and he starts wiping their brow. This is called a small group. Anybody ever seen a rip in the top of maybe an eyebrow and you're like, whoa, that's nasty. Raise your hand. And then they put like this thick-looking Vaseline mess on it, and it's kind of bleeding, but it's kind of gunked up. But if there hadn't been a guy in the corner going, you got it, Mike. You got it, Frank. You got it. You're almost there. You're like, I can't see it all. My eye is swollen. I can only see it out of my, left eye. Anybody ever seen this kind of fight? Then all of a sudden now, because that person was in the corner, I'm telling you, God's in your corner, the Holy Ghost is in your corner, and this church is in your corner, and he's over there saying, hey, guess what? I know you almost got out in 19. Then 2020 really set you back, and then 2021 was an issue. In 2022, you're kind of bloodied up, but there's somebody in your corner today, if you'll say, I'm going to get in a group, I'm going to go to church, I'm going to change my mind about this situation, I've got what it takes, then you'll get back up. Somebody ought to shout amen. Next thing you know, the devil's going to be on ground, you're going to be on top of it, hammer him, say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me and gave himself for me, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. And then the devil taps out and you walk around and go, yeah, look at me go. Somebody ought to go crazy right now. I'm saying this is your testimony. I feel like T.D. Jakes up in here right now. Somebody said, you look like T.D. Jakes. You need that fast. Shame on you. But a lot of times it's easy to say, I'm tired, I'm hurt. It's hard when you're tired and you're hurt, and you're in the middle of a battle. Anybody ever been tired, hurt, and in the middle of a battle? Divorce, in a custody battle, lost your friends, lost your money, even your dog was like, ah, and walked away with somebody else. The cat's like, I'm staying. You're like, I didn't even like you. Okay, so you're tired and you're hurt. This is what happened to me 26 years ago. Got married when I was 18? Yeah, just checking to see if you're paying attention. No, I'm lying. I messed up. I was married for 8 years. And that didn't work out. Now the enemy comes in and says, you wanted to be a preacher, that's never going to happen. Because people don't listen to divorced preachers. Come to find out a lot of people in ministry have been divorced. I didn't know it at the time. Nobody's going to listen to a divorced preacher. Come to find out that 50% of all marriages ended divorce. There was a lot of people that were interested in what I had to say. In fact, all divorce is a result of marriage. I got a lot of inappropriate jokes today, don't I? Just keep coming. But I was tired, and I was hurt, and I'd been in the ring. But then something happened to me, and I want this to happen to you in 2022. I decided that not only was I wrestling with the pain of her and the pain of betrayal and the pain of rejection. That's a butt kicker. Nobody loves me. I must not be good. Nobody likes me. And then now I had to realize that I was wrestling with myself, and I had to be confident of who God was, and then God made me confident of who I was, so that way I had the audacity to come up to Nicole and ask her out, which, by the way, like all girls, she said no, so more rejection. I saw her at the next party, knocks me out again, says no. Saw her at another function. I'm just telling you, Pastor Nicole, she's a hard woman. Come on, somebody help her. But the third time was a charm. By the third time, she went on a date with me, and by that time, I was better. I wasn't so tired. I wasn't so hurt, and I got a little confidence. Not cocky. There's a difference. Just a little bit of confidence, and then all of a sudden, she went out with me on the next day. Next thing I know, I'm her baby daddy. Come on, somebody ought to help me right now. In 26 years, 25 years later, somebody ought to give God praise today. So I'm here to tell you, just because you're tired, just because you're hurt, just because you're rejected, you need somebody in your corner to tell you, I was divorced too. It's not over. It's not finished, right? You need worship songs. It's not ending. It's only just beginning. If God is in it, all things are, come on, new. Ooh, ooh, all things are new. Come on. Ooh. Even the people that don't know this song, just the ooh, it's pretty easy. Ooh. You get tired, you get hurt. And I'm sorry because I wish you weren't tired and I wish you weren't hurt. Me and Nicole have a friend, the couple that we hang out with sometimes, and Frank is a champion, mixed martial arts, 2-time heavyweight champion of the world. In fact, we spent New Year's Eve with him, and just latter part of this week when I was finishing up this sermon, I called him and I said, hey man, would you just preach with me for a couple, 3 minutes? So he agreed. Now here's the issue. I put some of the B-roll of what it really looks like to fight. So if you have trouble watching fighting, now's your time to close your eyes and go, ooh, ooh. There's nothing really bad, but it is fighting. And so you're about to see me and Frank talk about this fight.
He stands 6 feet 3 inches tall and weighs in at 253 pounds. Fighting out of Las Vegas, Nevada, please welcome
All right, Faith Church, I'm here with Frank Mir, my good friend. In fact, we just spent all of New Year's together, our wives hanging out together. It's always really cool to hang out with Frank because you got Crank and you got Frank. And this week, of course, I'm preaching in the boxing ring. And I kind of want to talk about that fight, Frank, between you and Tim, how that, man, you just stayed with it. And that's kind of what my sermon's about, is just sticking with it and outsmarting the opponent. Can you tell me about that fight just a little bit?
Yeah, it was a fight that at the time, Tim Sylvia was an undefeated heavyweight champion. Going in there, I had a game plan of what I would do and just stick to it. I knew that I felt like his legs were open and weak, and we went out there and we were able to execute it. And I was able to get the fight to where I wanted it.
Frank does not mind this at all. Oh, he's got an arm, looking for the arm.
People asked me whether I knew his arm broke or not. And I was like, actually, I was only holding on so that I could actually do another move. I just was going to, as soon as we slammed down, I was actually going to throw him into a triangle. But so when people said when it started breaking, what happened? I'm like, oh, I felt something go. And so I just held on to it and kept pulling.
How long did that take? There for a while, you were getting, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, when I watched that tape, I go, Frank is, oh my goodness, I hate it. Look, and then you just stayed with it and you grabbed him. Was there any point during that time where you're like, I think I'm losing? Or did you just, what are you thinking in those moments?
The fight you're referring to is when I fought Lesnar. And yeah, it started out real bad. Just a very powerful, overwhelming guy who's a national champion wrestler, one of the top wrestlers, a heavyweight at all time out of college, and then obviously became famous with his professional wrestling career.
How long will it take for Lesnar to go for a takedown? About 5 seconds.
Yeah, no, when he first started off, he was just so powerful. I just stuck through it. There was a couple times in there that, you know, when things got bad, I just kept looking for opportunities to turn it around. I think that's something that sometimes people realize. If you stop to think about the situation you're in and feel sorry for yourself, you slow yourself down. So a lot of times in those situations, I just keep trying to move forward and just keep implementing and attacking. And just, to me, it's kind of almost like a math problem. What's the next step to what I have to do to get to the next spot, to get to the next place, to get to the next, you know, opportunity, and just what do I have to do to execute the very next move, the next step, the next link in the chain until I put it all together. And until victory becomes mine.
16 years, 2-time UFC heavyweight champion of the world. Actually, I think the longest tenure, right? 19 wins, longest tenure of anybody out there.
That's true so far.
Phenomenal. You know, I talk about this before we go on the, you know, you and I talk sometimes about just our family. You know, I got all those tattoos on my arms talking about, you know, collector's set. Your wife's like, Frank, that's it. We're the collector's set. So talk to me just a minute about how important family is, and like, just like you fight in the ring, you have to fight for a good marriage and fight for a good family, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tell people, like, you know, like, look, you know, divorce is an easy way out. Separated from people you don't like, it's easy, you know. And so, I mean, I don't care how much you like somebody. I can grab your very best friend in the world, and I lock you in a room together for over a year. if someone doesn't strangle somebody, I'm going to be questioning things, and that's just the way it works, And so I think it's just making, a conscious effort that this is a goal that we have in mind that we're not going to deviate from, no matter what comes our way, and that we'll work through it. There's a lot of stuff that Robert Jordan says about that on that topic that I'm a very strong believer in, about just, like it gives you certain security to know that there is no out, that, there's a Cortez. There's a story I tell sometimes when I'm talking, and he was from the Spanish Inquisition, or not Inquisition, the Spanish explorer, and he was down in South America, and he had 5 ships, and his Herman Cortez and his men were like, look, there's just too many natives here. We got to turn around. We got to go home. So at first he tried to drill a couple holes in the boats to make them sink, to make it look like, well, now we got down to 3 boats. So the men realized that they sank a little too fast. They weren't fools. They knew what he did. So in a last ditch effort before they hung him and went home, he burned all 5 of the boats down. And so now he said, well, there's no going home. There's only going forward. And sure enough, they conquered South America. They drove all through the Incan Empire and came home as victors. Obviously, if you're on the Spanish side of that story, you like it. If you're on the Incan side, maybe not so much, but or Mayans. But I like that mentality of burning the boats. Just that you give yourself no step backwards. I'm only going to move forward, or it's death.
You fight to win. All right, Frank, thank you, man. Give your wife and kids my best out there in Las Vegas. Thank you for being at Faith Church this week, and we're praying for you, and we love you. You are the champ.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Come on, give it up for Frank. Wasn't that good? Come on, make some noise. He's watching today. We got to make sure he knows Faith Church loves him. How many of y'all think he's got hit in the head a lot, but he's still pretty smart, right? I want to talk in our last couple minutes here about a guy in the Bible named Jacob, and let's talk about his wrestling match with God. In Jacob, in Genesis 32, all campuses, it says, but Jacob stayed behind by himself, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. This is a night fight, y'all. When the man saw that he couldn't get the best of Jacob as they wrestled, he deliberately threw Jacob's hip out of joint. And the man said, let me go at daybreak. They fought all night. And Jacob said, I'm not letting you go till you bless me. And the man said, what's your name? And he answered, Jacob. And the man said, but your name is no longer Jacob, for now it is Israel, God wrestler. You've wrestled with God and you've come through. And Jacob asked, what's your name? And the man said, why do you want to know my name? And right then, he blessed him. And Jacob called that place Peniel, God's face, because there he saw God face to face, and he lived to tell the story. And the sun came up, and he left Peniel, but he left with a limp because his hip muscle was out of place. In fact, that's why the Israelites still to this day will not eat any of the hip muscles of any animals, because they don't like to eat that part because of this wrestling that happened. This story is where this man by the name of Jacob was known as a sub-planner. In his past years, he was known as a person who fought for the right to get out of the womb first. In fact, you know the story. If you read the Bible at all, there was a wrestling match that happened on the inside of the womb of this woman. Can you imagine having twins inside of you, and they're doing American jabs and Chinese moves and jiu-jitsu, right? She said, there's something wrestling on the inside of me. In fact, the Lord spoke to me as I was studying for this sermon. He said, tell people that there's a lot of folks with a wrestling on the inside of them. The reason why they're fighting so much when they go outside and they're in marriage and in life and they got an attitude and they're always fighting, because on the inside of their heart, there's this fight that is happening. You don't feel good enough. You don't feel loved enough. You feel like if they hadn't taken advantage of you, then you would have made it so far or further. And this wrestling match goes on and on and on with this guy named Jacob. He meets his match with the guy named Laban, who will eventually be his father-in-law. And this guy, Laban, outsmarts, crooks the crook. And he wrestles his whole entire life. And then in the last scenes of the scriptures, where we're talking about the life of Esau, his brother, and Jacob, it says that now that Jacob is coming to kill his brother Jacob to make it right. And he gets so afraid because he doesn't want in the ring with his brother. And he's so freaked out while he's in this battle, that actually sends his wife away, and it said there that he spent the night alone. And it was there that he wrestled with somebody, and it was not God, it was Jesus. It was Jesus, prophesied Jesus, that was wrestling with him all night. We're seeing Jesus in the Old Testament. Jesus is there wrestling with him because Jesus said, listen, you once were a crook. You once had all this checkered past, but I'm going to wrestle you, and if I got to knock you out of your hip socket to where you walk with the limp the rest of your life, we're going to get to the bottom of this thing, and I'm here to prophesy to everyone listening at Faith Church today. This is your year in 2022 to come out. You might come out with a limp, but you're coming out with that past gone, overcoming that depression. Somebody ought to shout hallelujah. Overcoming that addiction, overcoming that inferiority complex, because God refuses to leave you in the condition that you are right now. You're favored. You're loved. You're anointed. I think how, in my own life, when I was reading the story and God was speaking to me about Jacob wrestling God all night, I thought, man, all night? Like the Lionel Richie song, right? All night long. And then I was thinking, how many nights have I wrestled God? Ask yourself that question. Some of you have been wrestling God. Like, I'm just going to go to church occasionally, but I'm not really going to serve at church. I'm wrestling God. I'm going to listen to this, sermon today, but I've done this where I thought, I don't want my wife to hear this sermon, or if she heard me hear the sermon, I don't want to make the correction now because I want it to be my idea later. Just being honest with you right now. Some of you are like, I can't believe you. At least I'm admitting to this stuff publicly in front of you guys right now. If you don't think that was a hard wrestling match. But we're wrestling. What are you wrestling with that you shouldn't be wrestling with? And God's wanting to change your name. He said, no longer, Jacob, are you going to be known as a supplanter. Not only you're not going to be known as the con man. You're going to be known as the guy who wrestled with God and came out blessed and favored. Now, the rest of your life, you might have just a little bit of a limp. In other words, you still remember the divorce that happened 26 years ago. I still remember the pain of losing all my stuff. I still remember the dark nights of the soul. But that's just a little bit of a limp that has gave me compassion and passion to come beside other people and get in the ring with you and tell you, if it didn't kill you, it's going to make you stronger. That God works all things together for your good. You're going to love again. Somebody ought to give God praise. You're going to vacation again. You're going to get married again. You're going to have a job again. But God wrestled with him all night to change him from the inside out. So many times we want to change on the outside. But the change actually happens. Listen to me, Florida. The change happens on the inside first, then on the outside later. I got 4 little points before we go that I want to give you. Number 1, Jacob was alone with God. We saw that in verse 24. Alone with God, you ought to write that down. He was alone with God. That means that all distractions had been removed. Here, going into 21 days of prayer and fasting, every day you need to get up and you need to read High God, get in the Word, worship. So you were all screaming, Pastor Nicole said double victory, and it will be a year of double victory, but you cannot do the same thing you did last year and expect a different result. So we got to get alone with God, remove all distractions. When you do that, God will also speak to you and tell you, go to church, get saved, get baptized. Some of you you're wrestling with God right now, like, I know I need to get baptized now, but I'm going to sign up for the next group. I'm in Florida. I don't want to drive all the way to Royal Palm. I'm in Royal Palm, and I didn't bring clothes. We have everything you need to get you publicly water baptized today to come up resurrected in a newness of life. So stop wrestling with that. Number 1, get alone with God. Number 2, we notice in verse 26 that Jacob was hungry for God. He so desperately wanted God to speak with him that he wrestled with Jesus all night long. Some of you need to make a decision today, West Palm, Royal Palm, Weldon, wherever you're at. I'm not going to miss a service. I'm so hungry for God, I'm not going to miss a service till he blesses me. I'm not going to miss a service till I overcome this addiction. I'm not going to miss a service until my family comes in line. I'm not going to miss a service until I actually feel a legitimate smile come on my face. I drive down the road and I'm happy again. He desperately wanted to receive from God. Number 3, verse 25, Jacob was broken by God. He allowed God to change him. So many times, guys, I've got up in the ring with God. In fact, every level comes with a new devil, but every level comes with a new act of obedience. To get the campus that I'm at right now, which today to build is a $40 million campus. To get this, I had to get in the ring with me. And I had to overcome my fear. I had to overcome leadership obstacles. So you got to allow God to break you. Don't wrestle with him all night. Just get it quick. Number 4, last one. Verse 27, we saw that Jacob was honest with God. He stopped pretending that he could do it, that he would prevail, that he was the leader of his own life. Because God saw in him something that he didn't see in himself, and he kept trying to prove to somebody that he was a winner. Tried to prove to somebody that he was the champion. And then sometimes when you're trying to prove it, what you do is you just throw in the proverbial towel. You just give up because you're wrestling with your own strength. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. There is a demon that has tried to get in your ring and convince you that you're never going to overcome the obstacle, that you're never going to be what God called you to be. And you need to say, wait a minute, like David, he was just a little shepherd boy, but God saw a king. His dad didn't even see in him what was possible. When it was time to pick out the kings, he brought all the brothers in, but he did not put in him. But listen, God saw in him something that his normal biological father did not see. Maybe your dad left you. Maybe your mom left you. Maybe they left you. I've been in that pain of rejection, but guess who hasn't left you? God. He said, I will never leave you, and I will never forsake you, even to the ends of the earth. Somebody ought to give God praise today. Don't throw in the towel. Don't give up. Put your gloves on. Get in the ring and fight this thing all the way out, because that's what you're called to do. Somebody shout, I'm a winner. I'm not a whiner. Now I want to show you a move. Pastor Austin's going to be embarrassed by this, but when he was like 7 or 8 years old, he was so skinny. He looked like a little child for like a hunger commercial. He grew so tall, he was so skinny. And he wanted to fight me all the time. He's like, I'm going to fight you, I have to wrestle. So I get on the ground, I'm so much bigger than him. And one day he handcuffed me with handcuffs behind my back. And I got him and wrestled him and moved, and he came up and he said, wah, and I got him and flipped him over. He said, oh, that's American move. So still today, we'll wrestle and I'll be like, oh, that's American move. Moves. The enemy's got moves, but you've got moves. I want to show you a wrestling move that I just learned about 7 days ago. I was walking on the beach with my wife, and all of a sudden the Lord spoke to me, and he said this, and I want you to get it. I told Nicole, take a picture of me right now, this move, take a picture. She didn't know why she was taking the picture. I took it. I was there. In fact, I actually hate the picture because I had my shirt off, and I forgot to suck it in. Come on, anybody ever done that? So I don't want to show you the picture. But here's the move. Y'all ready for the move? You ready for the move? Okay. This move's not too fancy, but he said, stop and do this. He said, your head and your heart have to be in alignment. He said, right now, you have some inner struggles and you're wrestling over some things in your life and you're disappointed with yourself and you're hurting in some areas and you see all this stuff going on. He said, just like it's an outward expression, whenever you feel like your heart and your head aren't lining up, just physically do that and it'll be an outward expression of, you know what, head, you're going to get in line with my heart. Heart, you are going to do what God told you to do. In my head, in my heart, it's an American move. Somebody ought to, it's a Hong Kong move. It's an Asian move. It's a Spanish move. I'm talking to somebody right now that you got to get back in the ring this year and you've got to learn this one technique. Your heart and your head have to be in alignment with the assignment of God that is on your life. Give God some radical praise today. Come on, somebody. Raise the roof. You can do better than that. Somebody ought to get excited. Stand to your feet right now and give God praise. Oh, clap your hands, all you people. Shout unto God. Stand up at all campuses. I want to bless you. While you're on your feet, how many of y'all this helps you today? Raise your hand. It's the second Sunday of a brand new year for you. Some of you drug yourself into a high school. Some of you went into a chapel. But God actually brought you into the ring this weekend. So you stop wrestling with yourself. You go, wait a minute, I'm going to get my heart and my head in alignment. I'm going to get saved. I'm going to get baptized. Some of you, this is the day you just need to go do it. Just jump in. I'm going to get in a group. So with God, all things are possible. I don't have time to preach it, but I'll tell the story. There was a woman in the Bible with an issue of blood. Remember that story, you know? In Luke's account, it said she fought through the crowd to get to Jesus. And they said there was a woman that fought. And then it said it was a woman who touched you. And they said, it's a woman, the woman with the issue of blood. And when Jesus saw her, he did not say, woman, he said, daughter, your faith has made you whole. God didn't call her a woman, he called a daughter. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, their names weren't that, they got changed. Jacob, his name got changed. I'm here to tell you the one with the issue of blood, her name got changed to daughter. I'm telling you that your name got changed this weekend. No longer will you be a supplanter, a liar, a cheat, an addict. You are now a blood-bought son and daughter of the Most High God. Come on, somebody, give God praise.